in that short book, again, you want to describe that transformation. And the best way to do that is to use contrast. Hey friends, it's Steve. If I offered to write a client-getting book for you in just 60 days, would you take me up on it? I've recorded a 15-minute video showing you our magnetic author method and explaining how it all works. It's up now at magneticauthor.co/video. Welcome to the Unstoppable CEO Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Gordon, and today I'm going to be answering a question that I get quite a lot. I've been getting a lot lately, actually. And the question is, what's the best kind of book to write if you're going to write a book to attract clients for business development? And really, there are four types of books that you see kind of in the business world. And it's important that you write the right kind of book, because if you write the wrong book, I can tell you it won't work very well. And so we're going to break that down today, and I'm going to share with you some tips and ideas for really how to craft a book that will go out and attract clients. So let's break it down. The four types of books, I describe them like this: a textbook, a desk reference, a bestseller, and a transformational book. And so a textbook is a book that's designed to teach a topic. And a lot of times I'll talk with one of our clients in their book kickoff call, and as they're going through our magnetic author program. And in the book kickoff call, they're really concerned about putting lots of information, getting kind of everything that they know into the book, as if we're trying to teach the reader how to do what they do and teach the reader so they'll know what this very experienced professional knows. And that's a big, big mistake. That is not the kind of book you want to write if you're interested in business development and using your book for that. If you want to write a book so that it's used in a college setting, it's used in, an association or in your profession to teach people how to do what you do, great, go for it. But that's not a business development book. And we had a client a couple of years ago. Actually, he learned this lesson pretty painfully, I think. Before he started working with us, he had written actually two books. And one of them was an award-winning book. I mean, the guy's brilliant. And he wrote this book, and it combined these kind of two domains of knowledge. And I mean, it's phenomenal. And he was really frustrated when he came to us, and he came for help with his podcast and with marketing strategy. And he was frustrated because the book just hadn't produced the kind of results that he'd been told that a book should produce. And, when I got a copy of the book and I read it, it was pretty apparent why that was. And it was because he'd written a great textbook. It was a really technical approach, very detailed approach to solving his problem, and did a great job of doing that. I mean, you could take that book and you could teach people how to do the topic he was covering in the book, but it wasn't working in convincing people that they should, come and hire him to help them. And, part of the problem was the book was too long. It was, I think, well over 250 pages, might have been 300 pages. And it was just really dense. It was a dense topic for sure. It's not that he did a bad job on the book. He did an outstanding job on the book. It was an award-winning book. I think it was actually groundbreaking, but it wasn't written to transform someone's thinking. And that's really what you've got to do. So that's the first type of book. And I'm going to recommend that you avoid writing a textbook. When you go into the book writing process, don't be looking at this as an exercise in trying to teach people what you know. It's a big mistake. So the second type of book that I see people create is what I would call a desk reference. So this is a book that it's got, a series of chapters, but they're not really necessarily connected from one to another. And we've actually just produced one of these types of books for one of our clients. The reason that you would produce one of these is when they're in a business where there's no logical kind of transformation taking place. So this particular client is an electrical contractor. We've done ones of these in the past. We've got a client that's in environmental consulting where there's no kind of personal transformation or business transformation that's necessarily happening. And they're providing a service that's really needed when it's needed, but it just doesn't sort of have that that same kind of emotional connection to it that, let's say, marketing or sales or personal development would have, or even other things. So we've done books for accountants and CPAs and people like that, where we've been able to tie what they do into the wealth of the business owner or transforming the profit of the business or things like that, where you can create that sort of transformational vision. But you can't always do that, and that's okay. A book is still really useful. And so in those instances, what you may want to create is what I would call a desk reference. And in this book, there's no transformation, but what we're doing is we're taking maybe all of the series of services that you offer, and we're giving a little bit of education, and we're showing the potential client what they need to know. We're pointing out maybe the questions that they don't know enough to even ask to make them a more informed, educated buyer of your service, because they're going to buy your service. In the case of this electrical contractor, he's dealing with property managers on large commercial properties and on manufacturing facilities, and they're buying his service, but there's no transformation we can describe. Instead, what we're doing is we're educating that buyer so that they're a better buyer. And in doing so, we're building trust and we're building relationship and we're establishing authority and preeminence. And that's really what creating a book is all about. It's really about giving you that position of preeminence in your market. And sometimes the desk reference is the only way to get at that. And so in the case of this electrical contractor, we went through all of the different services that he offered, everything from renewable energy to electrical maintenance to security systems and data wiring, for networks and all of these different things. And we educated the buyer, on the things that they needed to know at a high level for each of those things. And the idea was to create something that they would put on their shelf. And we tell them this right in the introduction. We say, look, we know you're not going to read this cover to cover. You may not even read it right now, but know that if you put it on your bookshelf, if you put it on the corner of your desk, that it'll be there when you need it. And when you have a need, you'll have some answers. And we recommend that you do that so that you'll know who to call. And we're upfront about that right there in the book, and so that can be a great way when you're not in a business that has got that natural kind of transformation about it. So that's the second type of book. The third type of book is a bestseller. Now, there are lots of reasons that you might want to write a bestseller. They're great. One of our clients was a New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today, and Amazon #1 over all of Amazon, not in some obscure category, but over all of Amazon, bestseller with one of her books. And when she did that, it totally transformed the business. She got great results out of it, and so there's lots of reasons to do that. It's right for certain types of businesses. Now, she was a speaker and a high-level consultant for big corporations. And so having that level of authority really made a big difference. It took her from, getting decently paid to speaking to getting really nicely paid for speaking. It took her from being another vendor for big corporations to being the one that they sought out. So there's a lot of reasons to do that kind of bestseller. But it also comes with a price tag, and it's a price tag that's not accessible to every business. Last time I talked with some of our colleagues who focus on those types of books, you're looking at an investment from $150,000 to $250,000 to hit those bestseller lists. Nothing wrong with that. And for the right kind of business, you can get a great ROI on that. And that's a certain kind of book. And that's where you're really going to be, trying to position yourself as that thought leader. And that's typically a little bit of a longer book. You're going to be in the 250 page range or 200 page range most of the time, standard kind of trade size nonfiction business book. Now, the fourth type of book that you may consider writing is a transformational book. And these are the ones that I really like for lead generation because they allow you to help a potential client see where they are right now and see what's possible for them in the future. And for somebody who's dealing with a really kind of pernicious problem, it can be really life-changing to have a book reach them and show them the transformation that's possible and lay out the path for the transformation. It doesn't have to give them all of the nitty-gritty how-to along the way. Most of the time, that's too complicated for them. They're not going to try and do it themselves, but they need to see that, oh, wait, there is this path. And I never heard of it before. I never knew about it, but now here it is. And now I can clearly see how it's going to take me from where I am to where I want to be. And so I think those are particularly good for lead generation when you can do them. And frankly, most businesses can do them. When you can't, obviously you've got that desk reference style book that you can do, but most businesses can create a transformational book if you approach it and think about it the right way. And I think these are really the best for lead generation. Now, when I'm thinking about and working with a client to put one of these together for lead generation, we're looking at a short book because we want to really engineer it for consumption. We want the book to be read. Now, we're okay if it's not read because, it's going to establish the client as sort of that preeminent authority in their market. It's going to help them kind of carve out that niche, that unique positioning that they need and set them apart from the competition. So we're going to accomplish all of that. And we accomplish that just by the mere fact that they have the book, whether people read it or not. But it's also the opportunity for us to describe this transformation that their clients go through, to lay out their process, their unique process, and how they approach solving this problem. And, all of that builds trust and credibility and authority. It gets prospects to buy into what that author does, what that business does, before they're ever engaged in a sales conversation. And that's one of the reasons I like it so much, because what you end up doing when you write this transformational kind of book is you have sales calls where people show up and they have read your book and they say, when I was reading your book and you talked about this and you talked about that and you talked about this other thing, and they start to repeat back to you your philosophy. They start to repeat back to you your approach to solving their problem. At that point, there's no selling left. They've already bought you. They've bought your approach. They just need to know what the deal is. So that's why, we really are big fans of that kind of book. I like to keep them short so that they can be consumed in about an hour to 90 minutes. And that means we're going to write a book that's anywhere from 80 to 150 pages long, and really try not to go over that, and we've done books that are shorter than that because they were able to convey the message in that kind of a space. And there are plenty of books out there that are, 25, 30, 40, 50 pages that are profoundly valuable books written by big time authors, So a lot of people worry, is it too short? You want it to be long enough, but no longer than it needs to be. And a lot of times those bestseller type books, they're filled with a lot of fluff and a lot of anecdotes and a lot of things that are put in there to get the book up to a certain size so that it can be sold. It can be marketed as a bestseller kind of book. So we kind of simplify and bring all that down. In that short book, again, you want to describe that transformation. And the best way to do that is to use contrast. So you want to think in terms of before versus after, the old you versus the future you. And that contrast is important because it creates some tension between how your potential client sees themselves and the condition that they're in now. And then you paint this picture of this bright future that they have ahead of them that is awaiting them on the other side of the transformation. And that creates tension and energy, and it gets them moving because we have to get them moving. They're sitting still, right? They're not taking action. We need to get them into action. And so we've got to do that. And we've been helping clients do this for, I guess, about the last 7 years. And I've been writing books along the way as well. I'm on book number 6 is in process. So those of you who have read all the others, number 6 is coming. So, and it should be good. So that's why we create transformational books. I think that's the best kind of book to write, and it's a short book. If you can't do that, if you're in a business that doesn't lend itself to that, then you want to be thinking in terms of how do I create a really great desk reference so that my prospect knows that, they can turn around and reach for me on that bookcase behind them anytime they have a question, and make something that's really valuable for them in that way. And that will serve you really well as well. So if you have any questions about any of this, drop me an email. send me an email to steve@unstoppableceo.net. And we've put together a short little 15-minute video that describes our magnetic author process, and it'll walk you through all of what we've covered, plus how we market and promote books and kind of walk you through the whole thing. You can watch the video at magneticauthor.co/video.
Thanks for listening to the Unstoppable CEO podcast. Help others discover this show. Leave a review and rating on iTunes at unstoppableceo.net/iTunes.